Okay, now we're moving on to the ocean of opportunities. And ocean of opportunities is part of the visioning group of tools, which is about picturing the desirable future and describing what it might look like. To plan the future, you need to imagine how it might look like. And ocean of opportunities is one of many ways helping you do this. So, how do you run an ocean of opportunities exercise? Um, it is a very, very basic type of an exercise, and it definitely shouldn't take you that long. What you get out of this exercise is, again, a visual map of the current technologies and solutions for your challenge, mapped out according to a couple of variables. As a consequence, you can spot the space for those variables with no solution in the market, in the system you're trying to work in. And these spaces might provide a window of opportunity for your project. So this is why it's called Ocean of Opportunities, because we are looking for gaps or empty spaces, oceans of potential opportunities, potential solutions that are currently not developed or not identified within a certain system. So there are again a few steps that we will be following. We will start by drawing the canvas with a very basic matrix. You will be drawing across, just like the one you can see on the screen, in which we will have two system dimensions, which will be depicted by the axis, and then the solutions will be scattered in the defined space. So the first thing you will do is you will select two features from your dominant system that are characterizing potential solutions in the system. For instance, if your project is about trying to find cleaner mobility solutions, you might want to try something that you can see on the screen. You can try with the access, with two things. First of all, with the access to the mobility solution. Is it a public or private access? And you put it on the vertical axis. And the way of using those solutions. Are we talking about individual usage or about collective usage? And put those on the horizontal axis. And with time, you will start mapping out potential solutions sitting under one of those four combinations. And as you can see on the screen, you will, with time, identify that there are some gaps sitting under certain dimensions, certain blocks. In our case, it is primarily the private access and more towards the left side, or the collective usage. But we will be talking about it more on the next two slides. So step 2 is to define basically the extreme values of each axis. So if possible, avoid quantitative scales and go for qualitative endpoints. So you may think of conceptual or provocative values such as, again, speaking about the mobility area, you can think about provocative values such as fossil fuel or renewable energy. Or you can be thinking in terms of affordable, expensive, and putting those on the axis. In any case, avoid using judgments as categories, such as better or negative, more or less. And once those endpoints are defined, place examples from your system in each corner of the matrix. And in case you cannot identify those extreme examples, then try a different set of endpoints or just a different combination of features. Following on, step 3 will be to look for the current solutions which account for combinations of two values of the variables, and plot as many examples as you can picture. When you finish, what you get is a map of the full ocean of solutions in the dominant system. And it should look something like this, something like the image that you can see on the screen. And this is where the final step, the final core step comes in. So we will identify blank gaps, holes, where no solutions have been developed. And they represent windows for innovation. This is your ocean of opportunity. So run a brainstorming session about the kind of service, business that could be created within that combination of variables and could present a solution for your challenge. Again, use post-its to put on the empty space as many solutions as possible. And then you can start an open discussion within your team to distill them further down. Is this a disruptive innovation? Does it look feasible, affordable? How can it be delivered? What's its timeline? Would it make a long-term impact on the system? And after that, you will get a short list of potential innovations for your project. For example, on the example that you can see on the screen, we have mapped different mobility options according to public or private access to a certain mobility mode or option, and individual or collective usage of this particular mobility option. And what we have ended up with is a rather well-populated upper part of the graph indicated public access, both individual and collective usage. So on the left and on the right part of the T, but the upper part. But then we have a quite empty lower part, indicating gaps when it comes to potential options in the private access and collective use mobility options. And this is the area that we need to concentrate on, that we need to put post-its as with potential solutions that we see are currently missing in this area. Now, once we have finished the core part of the exercise, we'll try a different pair of features and look for new windows of opportunity. So we had in the previous slide, the exercise we have used, or a pair of features we have used, was primarily based on the mobility solutions, and then we tried to look at different access modes. Is it a public or private access to a certain mobility option, and also is it intended for collective or for individual usage? But you can switch it around, play it around. You can definitely still stay within the same type of a problem, mobility space, trying to find out either a cleaner, more efficient, more equitable mode of public transport, but just changing a set of features and not look at the usage or access types, but you can, for example, be looking at the affordability part of the mobility system, or as previously mentioned, does it run on clean or dirty fuels, etc. So step 5 will be to try a different pair of features and look for new windows of opportunity. And this process can be repeated, can be iterated as many times as there are dimensions or features that you think are relevant for your system. And by doing that, not only new windows of opportunity will arise, but also you will be able to assess, to evaluate the importance of such features in terms of relevance for the overall system performance. And then finally, we will end this exercise with a debrief step. So we will take a step back and we will reflect on the outcomes and the process. And the way to do this debrief step is to start discussing in your group different type of questions, which will further help you kind of identify what are the core or key, more important considerations to take into account. For example, did you find it difficult to come up with different variables for the axis? Did you feel comfortable using qualitative scales rather than quantitative ones? Is there any variable which stands out from the average? Were they all relevant for the system? Did you find many opportunities, or was it a rather difficult process and you struggled? Would those opportunities identified for innovation be able to really transform the system? Do they work in the kind of radical part of the innovation sphere, or are they very basic and rather incremental? So start asking those questions, and rather and more provocative ones, to gauge the interest and the kind of innovation potential of everybody in your team working on this exercise. And this is how we end the exercise.